The next episode in this topic series will feature a Maryland student who has been active in elevating student voice across the state and nationally for the past several years. So, I am excited to have the opportunity to talk about the importance of student voice in school safety today with a very special student guest, Omari Barnes. Thank you for joining us, Omari, to share your knowledge and expertise with our listening audience. If you could actually start by introducing yourself and the various roles you serve on behalf of Maryland students.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Omari Barnes. I'm a senior at Crossland High School in Prince George's County, and I'm the current student member on the Maryland State Board of Education, which is a voting role, which is unique among states, appointed by the governor to represent the nearly 900,000 students in the state. This also means that I am a liaison to the Maryland Association of Student Councils, a voting member on their executive board as well. And so, really great role where I can act as a conduit for students to policymakers.
That's great. A really impressive resume that you have, Omari. And I just want to say, MCSS has had the pleasure of meeting and working closely with you on behalf of school safety since your freshman year in high school. Thus, I know you have some real valuable insight for our listeners today. If you could begin by providing some background information to our listeners about ways that you have engaged with other students, ways you've heard from other students across the state and even the nation about what matters most to them today.
Definitely. Well, I've been doing this since ninth grade, which is the reason why, as you mentioned, you've known me since ninth grade and I've had the pleasure of working with MCSS for quite a while. And it's been a journey. I started my journey in Prince George's County when I ran for student member on the Prince George's County School Board, a race that I lost, but I was able to visit dozens and dozens of schools, middle and high schools across the county, and really get a feel for what students were concerned about. When I began my service on the state board, I established the first statewide student advisory council, and we have 40 students and growing from across the state, including representation from the Eastern Shore as well. And I started a statewide tour where I did the same thing, visiting schools across the state, and I've had the opportunity to visit in Anne Arundel County, in Baltimore City, I have visits coming up in Western Maryland, Allegheny, and Garrett, so that's really exciting. Some of the common topics that I've heard from students as I begin to really synthesize all of the information because I need it when I'm speaking to the state board, I typically hear three big things: mental health, equitable access to the curriculum, and infrastructure. Those are typically the big three things. And sometimes students, they may not know that that is what they are saying. But when I synthesize all of the information, I am able to discover these recurrent themes. And so those would be the biggest three things that I've heard and that I've been working on throughout my now 7 months on the board.
That's great, right, and I think it's important for our listeners to kind of understand that it's you've really put forth some effort to make sure you're representing the wide variety of voices that represent students from across the state, and sharing some of those things that you've learned. It's great that you're able to sort of see those common threads throughout with them. So, when you think about the listening tour or how you've gone about doing that, what are some ways that school officials can do the same thing? Listen and learn from their students in their school to take action that continue to keep school safe.
Thank you for that. Because the role that school officials play to cultivate student leadership is huge. When I think about student leadership, I think about not just student voice, but I think about co agency over their education. We have to welcome students as partners, right? And empower them. One of the things that my school, Crosson High School, does is they host quarterly meetings with a committee of students that are not just SGA students, general student body. And they host quarterly meetings with them to really discuss how they can together improve the school climate. And they allow them to voice their feedback as well. They accept the information that may not be pleasurable for them to hear, but ultimately it's about providing a platform for students to express the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Mm.
That's the only way that we can improve is by listening to students. And so my school administration sort of did the same thing that I'm doing on the state level with my listening tour, but on the school level. And so providing those spaces for students to speak up about concerns, about what's going well, and what's perhaps in their perspective, from their perspective, not going well. Both are incredibly useful and important.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you kind of talking about that, right? The courage that it takes for the adults in the school space to truly listen to what the perspective of students have. When you think about, I guess, maybe sitting in some of those meetings, or even, when you've been out in other schools and systems across the state, what are maybe some ways that the adult make it clear to the students that they're there to listen with the purpose of learning, not just there to sort of check a box and pretend they're listening? Are there some unique characteristics that maybe the adults kind of have that make you feel more open to talking about these difficult things?
Yeah, there are a few. The first is consistency. So we as students are not going to reasonably expect that you are concerned about the student voice if the only time you meet with us is at an annual student assembly in the cafeteria or the auditorium. These meetings that I'm referring to, which are called PGRAS meetings at my school, not to be confused with the Prince George's Regional Association of Student Governments. So don't confuse it with that, but it's PGRAS at the school level, a committee of students that meet with the administration, and it's consistent, it's quarterly. And that means that the adults are saying, we care, so we're taking the time out of our schedules to meet with you on a consistent basis. And then in addition to that, on the individual level, just body language, right? Whenever someone's speaking with you, I'm sure you nod, you provide eye contact, and you ask questions. You want to show that you are actively thinking about the information that they're providing, and you're thinking about how you can turn what you've all discussed into some actionable action items moving forward.
Those are really important and great points, right? The consistency. So there's sort of a schedule you guys have defined quarterly as sort of meeting the need, right? To be able to discuss difficult issues. And my guess is when you know as a student that that meeting is coming up, you start to think about what some current existing problems may be, right? Or celebrations, right? That you want to kind of bring forth. And then that
We
real
do.
engagement, right? That real engagement from the adult with you, that they're asking questions, they're genuinely expressing interest in what you have to say.
We do. You're exactly right. And one of the things that I know my school does in the weeks before the meeting, they send a poll out to the student body.
Mm.
And the committee sends a poll out to the student body so that when they meet with the administration, they can not only discuss what is on the minds of the students that are members of the committee, but they can discuss the data that is provided by the student body, that is sourced from the student body. And so data collection is really important for the students, and providing enough time between each meeting for the committee members to meet with the students is really, really important.
Yeah, that's great. And it makes me also think about, right, we do school climate surveys once a year. right? And whether that data actually ever makes it into the right hands or that people are acting on what they learn in that sort of annual. You guys with this poll have made it more living and breathing, right? As kind of real-time data that you're responding to. Really smart. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that example in particular of what's happening. So, I'm gonna actually move back a little bit. So, you kind of shared these big themes that you're hearing from students, mental health, equitable access, and infrastructure. I'm kind of curious, infrastructure. What are some things that is related to?
Definitely. Students feel when I think about infrastructure, I think about, of course, the condition of our schools. And my school is an older school. There are schools in other counties where it really depends based on the context of your county, where you live. Your school may be a bit older. It's harder to concentrate. It's harder to enjoy coming into a school building that's old. There was actually a report done by the comptroller's office that showed that the vast majority, I believe in the last few months, vast majority of schools in Maryland are reaching a point where they are not functional because of the fact that our school buildings, many of them are so old. And when I speak to students, that looks like, you know, what is the condition of my classroom, right? It looks like whether or not I can access the Wi-Fi to do my work, or whether or not we have a consistent internet connection. It may look like sanitation, right? Whether or not we have even a bathroom that doesn't have stalls missing, right, in the bathroom. And the world is changing now. We're in this 21st century sort of space. When you think about infrastructure, you also have to think about technological infrastructure as well. We have this big discussion going on about AI, artificial intelligence, and whether or not students will have equitable access, depending on your zip code, to technological infrastructure to ensure that you can actually take advantage of this rising technology. And believe it or not, there are students concerned about that as well. I've spoken to them. And so there are a variety of reasons why students are concerned about infrastructure. But when I synthesize all the information, it's a theme that I've noticed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great point, right? If we value students, it means the spaces that we're asking them to spend so much time in are clean and healthy and take care of those basic needs, right? Lighting, heating, air conditioning, all those kind of elements that make a comfortable workspace for us. So that's great. That's great that you've been able to hear that from students, right? And it's complicated. It becomes complicated, as you know, as a member of the state board, how some of those needs and challenges are met. So, what about mental health? Talk to us a little bit. We hear lots about mental health, but what are students saying specifically related to mental health?
Many students, they speak about, it's all about relationships, relationships with other students, relationships with their teachers, their personal relationship with the curriculum and with their courses and their classes, ensuring that the school system is helping them to balance. Because we think about school is not just about academics, it's socio-personal. It's about your ability to interact with other people and to enjoy an extracurricular, right? So it's about supporting the full person. And how can schools encourage students to support not only their academic side while still encouraging them to be the best that they can be in that category, but just to help them to balance? And this is where counselors can really, really be huge, right? School therapists as well, huge, and ensuring that we have adequate counselor to student ratios in our schools. And all of this is complicated. There is no easy fix. And of course, I don't speak on behalf of the state board, but as a member, I've seen the work that we have been doing. But the students are concerned about balance and ensuring that they're not stressed and ensuring that they have time to enjoy those other aspects of school.
That's great. Yeah. No, I again appreciate you kind of sharing that, right? That balanced approach to life, right? But as a student, academic rigor and the well-being, social and emotional aspects of the school day as well. That's good to know. Good to hear that students are being reflective and really thinking about that, and for our adults to sort of meet them in that space. So I'm gonna maybe pivot a little bit to some more sort of challenging topic area. But so thanks for sharing all these different strategies. I know that you have encountered a variety of barriers to taking action that you are confident would make a difference in your school and community over the years of time as you've looked to improve your school and your community and that within the state. So I think it's important for us to really be transparent about how adults may get in the way of authentic action and student voice in order for us to do better, right? We need to call it out. We really need to look at how we can address that. So we need to do more than just simply say we value student voice. What are ways that we're creating this space for students to be part of the solution? Do you mind sharing one or two of those barriers that you've experienced over time that really kind of prevented you from being able to take action that you knew would make a difference?
Oh, wow. That's a really, really important question and really reflective question as well. For me, it's a bit unique because of my position as a student member on the state board. Well, let me start with this. The biggest thing I can say is that we have adults have to be cautious of minimizing student voices. And I'm going to use my role, and not just my role, but there are many of county SMOBs across the state of Maryland. When SMOBs are, as a class, embraced and treated as full, respected members of their respective boards, which they are, then that makes a big difference. For me, one of the things that has been a big challenge for me is coming from a county first that's underrepresented. Prince George's County, I'm the first student member from Prince George's County in about 10, 15 years. But not only that, is when I got into this role, there is sort of a misunderstanding of what SMOB is by many adults. My role is I am a voting member of the state board, which is rare, which is something else that we could discuss, empowering students with voting rights on school boards and also on boards that are not perhaps school boards, like the Maryland Center for School Safety Subcabinet, and the Children's Cabinet, where Zaria Nakvi and Gavin serve. So ensuring that we're empowering them with voting rights, but also ensuring that there is an understanding of what their role is. When I speak with adults, sometimes they'll come up to me and it's not necessarily they're doing this intentionally, but it may be incidental. But they'll approach me and say, "Okay, wow, well you're the student representative, right?" And although it is great to be recognized as what I am, which is functionally the student representative, of course, I have to remind adults that sometimes, no, I'm the student member on the board. All right. I'm not just here as a sort of symbolic, gesture, but I'm a member of the board, which means that the only difference between me and Dr. Joshua Michael, the president of the board, is that my name has student in front of it. That's the only difference. And so just an understanding of, okay, our SMOBs are student members on boards that also serve as crucial representatives and liaisons to the student body, not just symbolic student representatives. And it can be really complicated because it can be sort of a game of semantics. But that recognition and taking the time to understand what we do and what we represent is really important for students. And again, not only for students on school boards, but as I mentioned, Gavin and Zaria as well.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. I mean, and I think that you could take what you're talking about and filter that down to student government in local schools, right? Where, a principal may have as a procedure that they meet, with the president of their student government, and again, how they're potentially using the information or engaging those people as partners, right? Rather than as just a token representative, right? To what you're saying.
Yeah, most definitely. And when a president is elected at the school level, it's about not only are we training students to elect representatives and office holders that have their best interest at heart. And so that sort of realism is really important and ensuring that on the school level, school officials are respecting that. And so when you're greeting the president of your student government, you're treating that student as what they are, which is an elected office holder elected by the students of that school to have their best interest at heart and to bring their concerns to you. So I think that's important. So thank you for surfacing that.
Mhm. No, no, you're welcome. I think one of the so I'll sort of prompt you a little bit. I think one of the other barriers that I know I was maybe just experiencing with you is early on a couple of years ago, we were trying to do some mentoring stuff, right? And you were working closely with some others across the state to really get a program off the ground. And some of the rules related to funding and being able to create organizations or whatever was all getting sort of caught up in these existing rules and structures, which for an adult becomes discouraging to continue, right? And becomes sort of a roadblock that I guess from my experience as a school leader that I encountered those also, right? Where students would have great ideas. We would have to move forward to get approval to start a new club, let's say, or organization. And sometimes there were existing policies or rules that made it really cumbersome, for kind of no reason, honestly, right? When I thought about it, and I would become frustrated, and I know students would become frustrated as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that some schools, their policy just to sort of allow students to take initiative is if you can find a sponsor, your club exists. And I think just having a simplified process really helps students translate whatever their passion is into a club or into an initiative.
Yeah, no, you're right. The sponsorship element, right? So you're very much bound to finding that adult, right? And the adult being very motivated to kind of take on this extra duty, or task, and how that can honestly get in the way. And honestly, then gets in the way of consistency from year to year, right? So I think what we see are efforts will stand up that are very much connected to a student who had a passion, and that student, right, moves on in the grades, graduates, and that effort dies away, because the person with that passion is no longer there, which then is where we lack that consistency.
Definitely. Most definitely. It's about creating systems for things to continue. And I think school officials could also just communicate more with staff as well. Just encourage your staff to want to be involved with students who are interested
Mhm.
in creating clubs or organizations and be supportive. It's a lot to ask, as our educators are asked to do a lot. And I know that it can be really difficult to ask them to take on an additional responsibility, but it doesn't have to be a responsibility of the educator, especially if you're just asking for someone to be there to sort of just be a chaperone and you allow the students to lead. So it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm. No, that's a great point, and I love that you brought that up, right? So sometimes I'll again speak from experience as a school leader, you can create ways within the schedule, within your existing kind of bell to bell schedule where some of those activities can be occurring so they're not additional duties for a teacher. And most definitely school leaders can encourage the student voice, amongst their staff, right? And sort of make that part of an expectation around how everybody, right, from our food service to our drivers to our custodians to our classroom teachers that are engaging students in some sort of real authentic way. Good points. All right. So to sort of end on a positive, although this has all been really very positive, I think. What are some experiences you had where adults have really supported your effort, specifically done something that has encouraged you to be the leader that you have become?
Oh, definitely. Well, I guess I can share a few personal things. I spoke when we were having our discussion on the last subject about just the importance of embracing student members on school boards. So I guess I'll have to say, inversely, I feel really empowered when when student board members as a whole are recognized as respected members of their respective boards, and specifically when I am encouraged to make decisions because I do have voting rights on my board, not, you know, based on whatever other adults are perhaps voting on, but based on what I believe is in the best interest of students. And so when I'm encouraged in that way, it makes me feel really good. And our state board, I want to just spotlight them, has been incredible. They really did really, really great in getting me onboarded in terms of everything we were covering because we've been doing a lot on the state board. And so they've been awesome resources and just people who have so much knowledge about education policy. And so it's been really a joy to work with them. In addition, I would say just supporting students who are interested in, you know, being involved the school level, the community level. And there are many students in Maryland who are interested in influencing legislation as well. So being a sort of a connection between the students and lawmakers and policymakers. I recently had the opportunity last year to propose a bill to my state delegate that she proposed the last legislative session on youth access to IDs. It would actually ensure that if you are 15 years and older, you can apply for a real ID in the state of Maryland without parental consent. And I found out a few weeks ago, she pre-filed the bill for this upcoming legislative session. So through her, I will have the opportunity to really push for this bill. And that was sort of a really empowering experience as well, and has been. And I'm excited for the legislative session in a few weeks. But I guess translating that just away from Omari and to students, just empowering students, recognizing the validity of the roles that they and legitimacy of the roles that they hold, and just ensuring that they are in every room that they step in, they're recognized for their unique perspective, right? Being students in 2025 or 2026. And so yeah, most definitely.
No, thank you, Amari. Right. I mean, the experience that you are having as a student in 2025 is just so very different than what it was for most of the adults that you encounter. So, I think it's critical that we sort of meet in the middle, right? The adult and the student, and pave that path to the future, right? In a way that ensures success for all, so that we're not leaving some of students and adults behind or unseen in that space. So value that. So, any final words of sort of wisdom or inspiration? So, this is part of our kind of student voice topic series. Our hope is that people listening to the series feel motivated and inspired to engage with their students in their school in a real purposeful way. Any final thoughts?
Well, I don't know if I have any wisdom, but I do want to say just thank you to MCSS. Thank you to you, Miss Kimberly. I have had the pleasure of working with you since I was in the ninth grade, and you have just been so gracious and very supportive, and been a resource for me as I've continued to be a leader. And you were there when I was running for local SMOB, and now when I was appointed to the state board, you're still here. And so I really appreciate you. And thank you to you and Aaron, who's recording this, and to the entirety of the MCSS team for having this student voice series to really reach out directly and speak to our young people who are on the ground and experiencing schools every single day. It's just really important. We bring a unique perspective. So I think it's awesome that there's a state agency that's recognizing that. And so I just say continue recognizing that and just keep doing the work that you're doing.
We appreciate it. I appreciate it, Amara. You've been a joy to work with, very inspiring. And I've learned just as much from you as you maybe have learned a tiny bit from us. So we do appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next episode in this series. We'll be talking with a local school leader about ways they empower students to be active members of the school community.